This happened very recently and is still very fresh in my memory. My name is Simone and I'm 20 years old. I live on the countryside in an idyllic village where half the houses are vacation homes. Not much happens here, but if you enjoy nature, it's great. I am an outdoorsy kind of woman, my favorite element being water. I do kayaking, diving, swimming, and anything else water-related I can get my hands on. I was on my way home from my night shift. I got this job just for the summer at a halfway house. It's a home for 8 recovering addicts, and there always has to be 2 people working there at night too, just in case. It's usually very calm. We play cards, watch TV, cook, etc. Easy money. So, back on topic, I was driving home, and as I always do, I stopped at the little secluded lake for a swim. I can never resist a good swim, and I always have my bikini in the car. This lake isn't very large, but crystal clear and surrounded by a beautiful forest area. You would never know it was there if no one told you. The little road that leads down to the beach is narrow and well hidden. As a result, there's almost never anyone there apart from the occasional dog walker. I had only just started to swim out into the lake when I felt that my car key, that I keep tied onto a piece of string and tie around my ankle, didn't feel tight enough, and I was afraid it would slip off my ankle and be lost. So instead of swimming straight into the lake, I quickly made my way around the little rocky point of a headland. If the lake is slightly L-shaped, I was in the angle and could see through to the beach and car. As I tightened the string better, I look up towards my car. I am now in a hidden spot, not far from the beach and the car, but hidden behind a corner so I could see the car from the side. I didn't see him at first, and I had to squint to make sure it wasn't an illusion, a trick of my imagination. But no, squatting behind my SUV was a man in a bright yellow hoodie that I recognized. I didn't see his face, of course, and it was too far away to actually see who it was anyway, but I recognized the hoodie. It was Creepy Freddy. He was only 17 but very unstable, and he hadn't returned from his visit to his parents the day before. We had called the police, of course, but since he usually turns up on his own after a few days of freedom, the police often advise us to wait and see. He had earned his nickname Creepy Freddy after assaulting a girl with a scythe, all because he felt she was too beautiful. She wasn't badly injured, but still creepy indeed. He had a long history of drug-induced violent outbursts, and even if he was sober, he was a nightmare. I thought about trying to get up, leave the car and try and walk towards the main road, but what if he spotted me and ran after me? I had no idea if he was fit or not, and I was barefoot and my orange bikini would be easy to spot. I decided against it. The risk of being face to face with a probably drugged, violent, and possibly armed Freddy was too big a risk. I considered my options and realized there was only one: to swim across the lake and reach the little cluster of vacation cottages that occupied the opposite beach. As quietly as I could, I started to swim. The swim took over 90 minutes and I kept turning around to see if I was being followed. I reached the other beach exhausted and cold. I walked up the sandy beach as a young mom and her kid spotted me. I explained the situation. She phoned the police and fed me scones and coffee and the best waffles I ever had. The police arrived to find Freddy gone and all 4 of my tires slashed. I resigned from my job at the halfway house, and I hope we never meet again. Freddy is, as far as I know, still not found. So this literally just happened. I was driving home from my boyfriend's place at around 12:30 a.m. when I noticed a car following me a little too closely. I pumped the brakes to politely tell him to fuck off and continue on my merry way. I hope this car will pass me, but he remains on my tail. I literally think of what I've learned on this very subreddit and consider the chance that he's following me. I decide to put this to the test. I flip on my turn signal to take my typical route home, and when I see him do the same, I continue straight ahead, and what do you know, he does the same thing. This is when I start freaking out. At this point, I feel I should mention that I did consider the possibility that maybe he was trying to alert me to tell me something was wrong with my car, and I even checked the back seat, thinking back on the old urban legend, but he had plenty of chances to pull up next to me and alert me of any potential problems, and I'd rather be safe than sorry. As I'm weaving through random residential streets trying to lose this guy, I call my mom. I tell her that someone is following me, and she says to come home and run inside right away. I hear her calling my dad, a big guy whose favorite hobbies include fishing and gun collecting, to come outside and check it out. As I begin nearing my neighborhood, this fucker starts flashing his brights and honking at me. I pull in the driveway and haul ass inside, just as I see my dad come out the door and head towards the mysterious car, which is now parked in front of our mailbox. He told my dad that I had almost hit him. I assume he's referring to me pumping my brakes, and he thought I was drunk, so, since his aunt died in a drunk driving accident, he wanted to make sure I got home safely. Then he left, not because my dad scared the shit out of him, but because I was safe. What a gentleman. But we were not convinced. If he thought I was drunk, which he had no reason to, it's more likely he would have stayed the hell away from me instead of tailgating me all the way home. And if he merely wanted to make sure I got home safely, he wouldn't have been flashing his brights and honking his horn at me, or parking in front of my house after I clearly arrived home safe and sound. So, concerned citizen who takes the law into his own hands by following 19-year-old girls home at 12:30 a.m., let's not meet. I know I'm getting a lot of well-deserved criticism for not calling the police, but please take into consideration the state of absolute panic my parents and I were in, plus the fact that it could have been just some guy trying to let me know I had a brake light out or something like that. When you're actually in these kind of situations, even one as mild as mine compared to so many on this subreddit, it's hard to think clearly and rational. At the time, I just wanted to get home. With that being said, we are going to file a police report this afternoon about the incident, and I hope my mistakes can help someone else who may run into the same thing like this in the future. A police officer came to our house saying that the guy filed a report on me before I could file one on him. The cop was super nice. Apparently, he is now claiming that his brakes stopped working because he had to slam on his brakes to avoid hitting me. The officer told us that was pretty much impossible, unless they had been super worn out to begin with, since they worked fine when he braked to park in front of my house last night. She told us that the only thing the guy could do is sue me civilly if the mechanic confirms that his brakes stopped working. She said it sounds like the guy is trying to get some free money for new brakes out of us. She also told me that had I called 911 last night, they wouldn't have had a car to dispatch, so it was good that I went home. However, since he does know where I live now, and we live in a semi-nice neighborhood, we were worried more about being robbed by this guy since he's so desperate for money. But we aren't as well off as the front of our house may make us look, and we definitely can't afford a security system. Plus, through the Freedom of Information Act, this guy can obtain my address and personal info if he chooses to anyway. So I did end up making a report, but I didn't expect to have one made out against me. I'll keep you guys updated. Let me just tell you, this is a long one. It has to be since I've been dealing with this guy for over 4 years now. It all started in my last year of high school. I had gotten really into the hardcore scene from my city and attended a bunch of small gigs with my best friend. One day, I received a Facebook friend request from a guy named Alan. Looking at his profile and the stuff he posted, I noticed he was just 3 years older than me, from the same city, and liked many of the bands I did. So, 17-year-old me added him. We soon started talking, mostly about bands and school. He was in the middle of getting his college degree and I was about to choose mine. From time to time he would tell me how pretty I was and ask if I had a boyfriend. I did find him attractive too, so I flirted back. However, I quickly lost interest since few minutes after flirting, he would tell me he actually had a girlfriend, but they were having some trouble. I didn't want to take in any part of kind of cheating, so I just told him he should think what was best for him and his girlfriend and do the right thing. From then on, I limited my chats with him to music and school, and he too stopped flirting with me. Anyway, a month or so passed without texting when suddenly I got a message from him. We talked like we used to, and just before I had to say goodbye, he told me he had broken up with his girlfriend and felt so much better. He thanked me for always listening to him without judging and said that my advice had really helped him. I felt happy for him. I honestly don't know if this girl was really mean or not, but he seemed happy to be out of the relationship, and I wanted to be a good friend, so I was happy for him too. Now, at this point, I don't know what came to me. Maybe it was because I did find him attractive, or because it was very late and I wasn't making the best decisions. But I told him my best friend's birthday was in a couple of days, and that he should come to the party too. He agreed in a second, and I told him to meet me at the station close to her house. So I finally got to meet him at the station, after almost half a year of talking online. I know what you're thinking, and no, he wasn't a 50-year-old sexual predator, although I must admit I should have been more careful since he could have been someone interested in taking my liver. Nevertheless, we met. It was a bit awkward at first since neither of us knew what to say. We just walked to my friend's house making small talk. I guess we were both very nervous. When we got there, things got better and we actually had a good time, although he pretty much only talked to me. For the next month we kept going out for basic dates until he officially asked me to go steady and we became a couple. From here on then, the actual creepy shit would start. It hadn't been more than 3 weeks and I was starting to feel anxious. It's a weird feeling that I used to have when I was little and knew I was going to be punished for either getting bad grades or doing something bad in general. It was stupid though, because I was not a child anymore and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just had this feeling whenever he was around me. What made it even more complicated is the fact that I didn't really feel he had changed. He wasn't rude or anything, he was just unsettling. He would want to see me 24/7. We never went to his house, and whenever we were at my house, he would refuse to be anywhere else but my room. He would spend hours just staring at me, and believe me, I know you could take all of this with romantic intentions, but the way he made me feel was not warm and fuzzy, but instead it would make me shiver and anxious. I must admit I took the first chance he gave me and broke up with him. He meant to text his ex some lyrics to a breakup love song and texted them to me by accident. He apologized and explained it was just to let her down for good. I had none of it. I told him we may have jumped into the relationship thing too soon, and that I thought it was better if we went back to being friends. That night he called me 37 times. The next morning I had school, and through the day I got a text that immediately got me nervous. "What time will you be home? I'm coming to talk," he wrote. I really didn't want to see him, so I told him I wasn't sure and that he shouldn't go. He should just leave it. Plus, we had only been dating for like 4 or 5 weeks, so why make a big deal out of it? Just let it die. I did in fact get home late that night, and oh surprise, guess who was standing in front of my door? He had a blank stare, and when I was passing by to park the car in the garage, he followed me with expressionless eyes. I went inside and left my stuff in my room, shaking. My brother came to me asking what the hell was going on. He said Alan had been standing outside for over 4 hours now. I told him I would handle it, since he is my little brother, so I didn't want to worry him. I took a deep breath and went outside. We argued for about an hour, in which he would tell me he loved me and that he knew we were meant to be together. I told him I wasn't feeling comfortable and I just wanted to go back to being friends. He told me to move in with him. For a few minutes I was speechless. He used this time to explain how he would get a job and that I could keep studying so I could finish high school and that I could get a job too. According to him, we would start a business together and have our first child by the time I was 21. He had our life planned out and I had no say in it. I managed to catch a moment to speak and tell him straight out he was out of his mind. I was only 17 and nowhere close to thinking about living with him, much less having a child. Alan then made this weird face, like he wanted to cry but not actually. I swear it was like a cheap acting trick and it just creeped me out even more. I cut him off. I told him we were over and ran inside. From here on, he got worse and worse. He would text my friends, even if they had no idea who he was, and told them to tell me that I needed to be with him where I belonged. I blocked him from all social media since he would send me non-stop messages and post weird poems that had a hint of scary, with things like, "I stand in the dark so you can't see me, but you're the light so I'll always see you." He called my house. If I picked up, he yells, "I need you," non-stop. If anyone else does, he just hangs up. Now, this kept happening for almost half a year, and I know what you're thinking. Why didn't I call the police? Well, I think I failed to mention I'm from Mexico City, and I can promise you, no officer is going to take any action against a few dozen phone calls. I don't even think they'd know what to do. Little by little, the phone calls stopped, but he was still texting me and dedicating songs to me in an online radio station most people from the hardcore scene listened to. This one particular time he dedicated "Your Betrayal" to me. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Alan became unstable. He would go from dedicating love poems to insulting me, saying that I was ruining his life. I honestly lost count of how many crazy and scary things he has done in these past years. But I think the worst of them all was this one time a year ago when I went to a concert with my best friend. I was kind of flirting with one of the musicians that opened for the band, and my friend was playing wingman. He went to get us some beers, and just as I stood up and turned to chat with my friend, I saw two figures take the empty chairs in front of us. It was Alan and a girl he introduced as his sister. The moment my friend and I saw them, we froze. A mix of being uncomfortable and scared got to me, and I just looked away. "You cut your hair." He broke the silence, reaching for my bangs. I instinctively pulled back. "It looks great on you. Everything does." He spoke in a soft but numb voice. I nodded and told him I was with someone, so he should leave the chair. I looked to his sister to encourage her too, but she was absent-minded, playing with her phone. "Do you want a paper flower?" he asked, completely ignoring what I said before. The guy I had been flirting with was making his way back, but since he saw two other people now in his place, he just drifted away. "Dude, you seriously need to get going." I was losing my patience, but I didn't want to make a scene since the concert hadn't even started and I wasn't getting kicked out. Once again, he ignored me and started making a rose out of a napkin. "Let's go over there," my friend suggested, and I took her on the offer. Or so I intended. Alan's sister, who suddenly lost interest in her phone, was now grabbing me by the arm tight, keeping me from walking away, not saying a word, just grabbing me. Now, For what happened after this, I must say two things. One, I am known for being maybe a little too aggressive, but when it comes to people who I cared for at any point in my life, I have a soft spot. And two, Alan had been beyond creepy. Given that it had now been around 3 years and he wouldn't leave me alone, but he had never been violent, both rules were broken that night. I snapped. I took the flower he had just given me and, looking at him straight in the eyes, I slammed it against the table so it would lose any shape it had. You are not a good guy. You are a creeper who won't leave me alone and thinks I owe him in a relationship. I whispered close to his face with an anger I don't think I had ever felt. My friend and I pushed through and made our way outside for a smoke and to clear my head. We were chatting. I was shaking and she was trying to calm me down, asking me if I was feeling better and telling me that if I wanted to leave, it was okay. Then we heard the screaming. At first it was some bottles falling and a couple of screams, so we thought someone messed up and they were mocking them, but it didn't stop there. The yelling continued and we saw the bouncers at the entrance rush inside. I quickly put out my cigarette and headed towards the commotion with my friend. In all honesty, I was hoping to see just another bar fight, but it was worse than that. There were 2 tables knocked over and I don't know how many broken beer bottles were on the floor. A bunch of personal articles from a backpack were being poured onto the floor, and the person responsible for all of this was no other than Alan. Quickly enough, one of the bouncers restrained him, as the other one searched him for any potential weapon he might have had. His sister, on the other side of the small venue, screamed at Alan and the bouncers some stuff that I really couldn't make out since there was a lot of noise. As they literally dragged him out, I was pushed outside by the crowd and stepped to the side speechless, watching Alan curse and kick. I had never seen him this violent. In fact, I had never seen him violent at all. Then he saw me. "See what you did to me?" He yelled at me, but since a small crowd had formed around, people thought he was just on drugs yelling nonsense. "You ruined my fucking life!" My eyes started to fill with tears. Maybe it was because I was scared or because I still couldn't fully understand what was going on. What could I have possibly done to him in order to make him like this? Thankfully, my friend found me along the crowd and, without even asking, she dragged me to the subway and back home. I cried all the way. I haven't seen him ever since, but I know he's still around. How so? Well, I now live in Japan. Been living here for a year or so. It was my birthday a few months ago, and I got a big bouquet of roses with a card that read, "I shouldn't have given you paper when you deserve the real ones. Happy birthday, my love. Alan." Alan, I beg you, let's not meet again. Hey guys, thank you all for watching my video. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join the Nightmare Army. I'm always looking for new soldiers in my Nightmare Nation. So guys, I want to talk to you about a pretty big channel update that I'm going to be doing. And I'm going to be uploading Monday through Friday and Monday through Thursday from now on. Now this is a pretty big step, and I've thought about this all weekend, and I've talked to my friends and my parents about it. And I really want to give more back to you guys instead of just uploading Tuesday and Friday. Now, the whole video schedule, how this is going to work is, well, let me just pitch an idea to you guys and you guys tell me if you like it or not. For instance, Monday, like today, I could do True Scary Stories. Tuesdays can be Creepypasta Tuesdays. Wednesdays and Thursdays can be the True Scary Stories. And Friday can be the No Sleep. Whatever you guys decide, whatever the vote holds for you guys let me know what you think is good and what you think is a good video schedule. I love all you guys to death, and just remember, the best ideas always come out of nightmares.